Yeah, yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Is this a trip here and take the front row or what?
No, that's bad luck.
Good call, that will answer questions.
What's up, guys? How are you? Yep. Brought all your stuff, of course. You brought your entire bag, seems like. Come on over here, you guys. Keep filing on in. You're the eye candy. You're the eye candy, Pete. Come on. Everybody? You guys as well, if you want. Yeah, right here, Jesse. Perfect. Well, thank you all so much for being here this afternoon. My name's Elliot Engen, and I represent District 36A here in the House. And today we're going to talk about the SHIELD Act. This is a piece of legislation that I've been working on for quite a while. And before we get into any of the dense policy, I first want to give you a little bit of a backstory as to what led me to pursue school safety issues here at the legislature. It was 2012. I was in 8th grade. Yes, I'm dating myself. And it was December 14th. It was a Friday right before Christmas break. And I remember we were being rowdy in class as usual. And then the teacher said in a very stern voice, "Oh my God, it's happened again. Everybody shush." She flicked on the TV and we watched from the helicopter vantage point a bunch of students filing out of Sandy Hook Elementary School with their hands on their head. And it was the first time that I started to recognize my own mortality. It was the first time that I ever thought about the fact that a school setting could actually be an unsafe one. And that stuck with me. Fast forward to 2023, before I was even sworn in, I was researching some initiatives that Minnesota had taken when it came to school safety. And I stumbled across a podcast with Jason Polinsky, standing beside me here, on WCCO. And he was talking about a comprehensive, multi-layered approach to providing the resources needed to protect the students and teachers and staff within schools. And it was a perspective that I hadn't heard prior when we were talking about school safety. So I decided to reach out, thinking that I probably wouldn't get a return email. But sure enough, Jason said, "Yeah, come on down to Lakeville and take a look at what we've done here. Take a look at what we have created to give every student, teacher, and staff the shield that they deserve if the worst case scenario were to happen in a school." And I remember right after that tour, I looked at Jason and I said, "How isn't this in every single school across America?" And I meant it. I think that right now we're dealing with an issue that seems to be politicized right away. When a tragedy does occur, we have an instinct to go right back to that gun debate. And this bill is not about a gun debate. I don't care if you're an NRA card-carrying member or if you are the most staunch pro-gun control advocate ever. I think we can both agree that providing those tools and resources to allow students to be safe, that's a no-brainer. So I want to turn it over to Jason before we get into the policy side of things. He's going to talk about some of the installments that they have done within 3D response systems based out of Lakeville. And that's kind of what we're going to be discussing when it comes to the SHIELD Act bill and the resources to get these in schools across the state of Minnesota and really provide a visionary solution to an issue that has not been adequately addressed. So thank you all so much.
So my name is Jason Malinsky. I've been a police officer for the past 29 years. One of the most fun parts of my job was when I was a school resource officer. During that time, I got to build a relationship with kids and kind of get to understand how the internal workings of a school goes. But most importantly, those relationships that I made with those kids, you really latch onto them. During that same time that I was a school cop, this is shortly after Columbine, I recognized that we weren't doing enough on the law enforcement side, nor on the student side, to respond to a threat in a building. So I started teaching Run, Hide, Fight. Back then it was called Lockdown, and then changed to Run, Hide, Fight after Sandy Hook. But the building wasn't supporting the concept. And I started teaching teachers and first responders on how to respond to these incidents. And it got to a point, I think about 2014, when my son Caden came to my office and I was putting together a PowerPoint that I had to go teach about 1,000 teachers the next day on Run, Hide, Fight. And my son asked me, well, what do I do? And I said, you run. So I kind of put myself in a dilemma that I'm teaching a concept, but I'm telling the person I love the most in my life to do something completely different. Because in the back of my mind, I knew the building didn't support the concept of Run, Hide, Fight. I refuse to teach Run, Hide, Fight anymore after 2014. I refuse to do it because I don't believe in it, because the building doesn't support the response. The officers are not getting there faster. So my partner Pete and I, who is former law enforcement as well, we put our tactical minds together, and also my experience as a school resource officer, and how this stuff flows during a drill, and how do we put it on steroids, and how do we give the kids the tools to actually take their building back in less than a minute. So if something goes haywire in a building, empower the teachers, empower the kids to take their school back with tools that are installed in the building. We focus on cover, concealment, and communication throughout the entire building, and we provide the innocent people those tools so they can respond effectively. We also get law enforcement there faster, and also provide the tools for law enforcement when they arrive to interact with that subject on a quicker level. So when everything works together, you actually create a system, much like a fire suppression system, where you do trainings on fire suppression. It's keep it simple, stupid. It's point A to point B. A fire suppression system is multiple layers installed in the building to take out the fire, contain the fire, get the fire department there faster, and provide an alert system to everybody in the building. We basically do the same thing, only for a different threat. The fire code has been so successful that there's not been one loss of life to a child in our educational building since 1958. Fire really got it right. And this topic we just have not addressed yet. We need a paradigm shift on how we're looking at this, instead of just wash, rinsing, and repeating every single time something happens. I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Frauenschuh. I'm a mental health provider. I own a company called Life Development Resources, and I've been in practice since 1999, so I'm dating myself too. I have spent my career working with high-risk youth and their families. I've worked in correctional settings, I've worked in residential settings, and in outpatient. And I developed my passion for school safety after I had worked with several potential individuals who would commit an act of mass violence, and after I had kids of my own, of course, right? And what I realized is we're really doing some excellent mental health work within our schools. There are programs we have in Minnesota that I think are unparalleled across the country, and there is a gap. And that gap is that space where we need to have people like myself who have specialized more in the forensic end of working with kids that are of significant need from a mental health perspective, so that we can support the schools in recognizing who those kids are, how we can support them, and then this component of prevention, of supporting these kids through something that's called behavioral threat assessment and management. We can couple that concept of helping our most at-risk kids, coupling that with the physical safety measures. So even if mental health doesn't get it right, or we miss a cue and an incident occurs, that child has an opportunity to continue to heal and go on with their life, and we aren't facing hundreds and hundreds of kids and families that have been dramatically impacted by a dangerous event occurring in a school. So I am a very serious supporter of this bill.
And one thing that I want to reiterate here, this is not a bill about hardening schools. I think we hear that term a lot, and we automatically jump to the assumption that we're going to create a prison out of a school. Nobody wants that. Every single one of the installments that we list here in this bill are completely naked to the human eye until you need them. And we want them to be there. We want that shield in place if the worst case scenario were to come to fruition. And a lot of people don't know this, but the average independent school district here in the state of Minnesota experiences 9 critical incidents per year. So this is an issue that is not going away. We need to address it, and we don't want to do it in a reactionary way. We should do it proactively. So with that, I'll take any questions you guys might have. Yeah.
How much money do you think the grant program, I mean, this seems like it would be expensive, you know, to retrofit every school. How much are you anticipating in that?
I think expensive is a little bit subjective, seeing as we had an $18.5 billion surplus. We had that $10.5 billion in excess taxes on top of that. We had a 40% increase in state budget spending overall. Across the street, we have a $730 million new building for politicians. But last year, when we brought this forward with bipartisan support in both chambers, they wouldn't give it a hearing for $100 million. So this is relatively inexpensive when it comes to making sure that every single school in the state of Minnesota is equipped to deal with the worst case scenario.
Would it just be, you know, every school gets the same amount in a grant, or would it be just depending on what they're applying to you know, of that list that you have in your bill to apply to their school?
We're actually looking at language right now. I'm working in concert with Mary Frances Clardy, who is a Democrat and has been supportive of this and signed on to it last biennium. And I really want this to be a bipartisan piece of policy. I don't want to steamroll this through and not have it get the votes on the floor. I think if we do work in good faith to iron out those details in committee, this thing has a real shot. So thank you. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, I have one question for Jesse here. So you go to Orchard Elementary?
Orchard Lake Elementary.
Orchard Lake? So that's in Lakeville, correct?
Yeah.
Do you feel safe at school?
I do.
Tell them why you feel safe at school. Here, I'll bring this down for you.
I feel safe at school because we have the police button. And whenever there's an intruder, we haven't had one yet, but if there is one, then someone would press the police button and we would all shut off the lights, be quiet, and go into a corner. We would feel really safe, and, well, at least that's how I feel. And, yeah.
Awesome. Nice job, Jesse.
I
Oh, yeah, you have another question?
I just wanted to make sure everybody else got a chance to.
Yeah.
There were some others. And this maybe is a question for, it's Jason, correct, right? Is there any other company that's doing something similar to this? I know that, you know, the bill talks about like a company that's been around for at least 2 years that offers these things. I'm just wondering if this is kind of the main one, or there are others that you're thinking about.
I'll speak to that. So we actually give the discretion to the School Safety Center to determine the list of eligible vendors who do have a background in conducting this work, and they're experts in it. We don't want all of a sudden organizations to pop up overnight looking to benefit from this, but I also don't like direct grant appropriations. So we want to make sure that we get this done right. I know that there are other vendors who provide some of the components that are listed within the bill, but 3D has demonstrated not only that they're doing it right, but take a look at Lakeville. I mean, taxpayers overwhelmingly supported the referendum to install this, and I think Minnesota taxpayers across the board would be willing to do the same.
Are there any other districts that have done, you know, used the system besides Lakeville?
I think,
Something similar?
yeah, many have looked at it, and many can't afford it. And some of them can afford it, but they're not necessarily always prioritizing their dollars. You take a look at a football field at White Bear Lake, for example. It's $9 million for a new turf field, AstroTurf field. For a fraction of that, we could have this in every single building in the district. So we're looking at different funding revenue sources to try to get this done. Long-term facilities maintenance is something that we've discussed. Safe schools dollars, they're tough to come by, and it's still at that $36 level. And we know that that's also going towards mental health resources. So we don't want to expand the scope of eligibility for purchases under that, and take away or subtract from other necessary components of a comprehensive school safety plan. But I think we can get creative and find some funding here. Is that it? Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys. Really appreciate it.